Garnet, this is Eggs. I finally put this timeline together instead of letting it float around in my head any longer. I've split these into two main universes, the Flowerbud universe and the Mineral Town universe. These two universes are completely separate, aside from a certain Easter egg that bothers me a little. I'll get to that. And two games so far do not fit into either. There are also mini-universe splits within each of these two main universes. They start off from a main universe, but then are alternates of other games along their timelines. I didn't worry about things like technology. All of the games have an odd mix, like having big color TVs, but then farming with a hoe, having motorcycles, but not cars. They can't really be put into a specific order because of things like that, and also they can't perfectly fit into like real life points in time also because of that. So this is completely detached from the real world. I'm not setting dates to this. Black lines mean they're in the main timeline in their universe. Blue lines are for connecting games within alternate timelines that originated from the main timeline. Purple is for connecting two games that are alternates of each other. I didn't draw a purple line between 64 and like Back to Nature and Friends of Mineral Town because I didn't think it would look good. And I feel like it's already an implied purple line between those, otherwise we wouldn't have these two universes. The only actual amount of time that I put is on the 100 years between A Wonderful Life and DS. There's a generation between the beginning of the Flowerbud universe and then when 64 and 2 for Game Boy Color happened, but I couldn't find like a satisfying way to mark that. Can you tell I wanted this to look really clean? I didn't want too many markings all over. So that's why this video is really good to explain what I'm actually thinking. Aside from that, small amounts of time pass between games, like tiny little amounts. We're not told exactly how much. It's not like an entire generation each, it's just like maybe like months or a couple years. So I wasn't able to write like between each game like exactly how many years pass. It just, you just don't know. Except for between, you see where how I put 64 and Save the Homeland. There could be a couple generations between that. That's the only place that might have a big gap besides what I've already mentioned. And that's a might, that's maybe, that's not for sure. Alright, now I am going to be getting into detail about each and every game that I put on here. Also, you can see that I didn't like include like separate like gender versions, like A Wonderful Life, that is for A Wonderful Life, Another Wonderful Life, and Special Edition. I'm counting those all as one thing. In the Flowerbud universe, we're starting with SNES and Game Boy Color, which I put as being the same thing, because they pretty much are. The only difference is that you can't get married in Game Boy. In my notes, I wrote down what village each game takes place in if I know. I write down what Harvest Goddess is there, and I write down what other like magical beings are there. Which these things that I've noted don't like always have like a big impact on where I think it goes in the timeline, but I thought it was an interesting thing to mark down for each one. It did give me some idea of where something should be put. So as far as I know, SNES Game Boy Color is the beginning of the universe, of the Flowerbud universe at least. It takes place in Flowerbud Village. We've got the original Harvest Goddess, which I think is supposed to be the same as like the classic Harvest Goddess. Which might also be known as Gaia, because she was called like Mother Gaia in Story Seasons. Well, I mean, that would actually be a different one, because that's in a different universe, but you know what I mean. I think the original is the same as like the 64 one, just with a different look, I think. And other than that, we have Harvest Sprites, the Kappa, the Blue Fairy, which was never seen again, and the Beanstalk Chicken, which was never seen again. We're gonna cover the Game Boy Color games first, because that'll be pretty quick and simple, I think, to get through. So the universe splits off. I think there's a generation between Game Boy Color and 2. 2 takes place in Flowerbud Village. There's no goddess seen. I don't think there's any other magical creatures at all. 2 is an alternate universe from 64. I did not really believe at first that this game takes place in Flowerbud Village, mainly because the entire cast is different except for Mary. I thought it was a different place and that Mary moved by herself, but I decided to find a specifically Japanese source because I trust those more when it comes to things like this. And in this guide, one of the guides I found, it does share the same name that they use in Japanese for Flowerbud. So this is somehow Flowerbud, I guess. So that's why I put it as an alternate universe from 64. If it weren't Flowerbud, I would have kept this in the main timeline and just would have put it after 64 and would have just said that Mary moved. But I can't do that, so it's over here. It makes me wonder if Daisy is descended from Nina in this version. Daisy happened instead of Potpourri. Mary is inevitable. I don't know what I should think about the mayor. Is he related to this Mary? He doesn't look like Thomas. He sort of looks like Theodore without a hat, which makes no sense combined with Mary. Mary is the reason I put this where this is. The mayor looks exactly like Hines from 3, but it's a different location. So can he be mayor of both places? Is this the same character? I don't know. 3 takes place just shortly after 2. Pete from 2 moves to live with Sarah in 3 on a different island that I don't think we ever get a name for. And as far as I know, this is where this little chunk of the timeline ends. Also, there's no goddess scene. There are harvest sprites in this one. In 3, there's also the mermaid Marla and Pac, however you say it, Pac. The little guy. Back over to the main timeline. I placed True Tranquility before 64. True Tranquility could be placed like right before, right after, or during 64. Ellie and Gray are here, not looking any older. It's very clear they're from Flowerbud and not from Mineral Town. It's on their resident cards. They mention people from back home. They have the same jobs and interests that they do in 64. It could be before because neither are married yet. Gray seems to be able to ride horses while he can't in 64 due to an injury. Sounds like Ellen is probably still alive. It could be after or during because they both seem pretty deeply in love with someone by now, even though they haven't married them yet. Gray is planning to propose to Potpourri as soon as he gets back home. He even says he has a blue feather already. Ellie is also talking about how she would like to marry someone. With Gray, it's obvious he described Potpourri as the girl he liked. He didn't say her name, but it was obviously Potpourri. But Ellie is more vague. I guess because Jeff is the rival for her in 64, but Ellie is considered by many to be the canon bachelorette for 64, so it could be Pete. Either way, they're already crazy for someone. If it's Pete, True Tranquility would have to have happened during 64 because Ellie would have to like know you first and then leave randomly in the middle of you wooing her and then return. I'm probably overthinking all of this. But yeah, as for Gray's injury, maybe he got better. I don't know exactly how he was injured or how badly. If this is before his injury, I'd kind of like to warn him. Honestly, I'm open to this going anywhere around 64 on this timeline. There's reasons for and against any placement, but since I can't keep moving around for eternity, I've plopped it down above 64. And I'm gonna go with Gray hasn't been injured yet. I could be wrong. It takes place on Waffle Island. The Harvest Goddess is different here. Cephia? Is that how you say her name? And there are harvest sprites. I don't think there was a Kappa in True Tranquility. I think that's all the magical beans that were in True Tranquility. And then immediately after True Tranquility, 64, taking place in Flowerbud, we've got the classic goddess. We've got the harvest sprites, we've got Kappa. And Kappa is so much nicer in the Flowerbud world than he is in Mineral Town. Whether this is really after Tree of Tranquility or not, it's for sure after SNES, since several 64 characters are the grandchildren of the SNES characters. Ellen is still alive and in the game. The town is set up more or less the same as it is in SNES. And then I think Animal Parade is an alternate universe from Tree of Tranquility, and you see I have a V1 up in the corner because I actually did make 2 timelines, and I'll show you that actually in a little bit. I won't show you that yet. Normally, I don't think it really connects to any other game. It just exists over here as its own thing. We've got Castanet Island, in the main towns like Harmonica Town. We have Sephia again, and now we also have a Harvest King that we can actually see and know that he is actually the Harvest King for sure. I am becoming more convinced that Thomas is the Harvest King in the Mineral Town world. Over here we have Ignis, there's the Harvest Spice, there's the Witch Princess, Vivi, she's a different Witch Princess. We've never seen the Witch Princess. We've never seen the regular Witch Princess in the Flowerbud world. Ever. That one only exists in the Mineral Town world, and we've only seen Vivi over here in Flowerbud universe. So I keep on flipping whether I say universe or world, excuse me. And we also see the wizard Gale. Then we have the Kappa, who is under the bridge. He doesn't really do anything in this one. It's the same characters put into a different location, and a few new characters that I've just listed to you. Not a huge difference at first glance. Ellie appears on the TV. I can't figure out if there was like a really specific reason why I thought she must be Flowerbud Ellie, but she was also the weather girl in Tree of Tranquility as well while being the Flowerbud version, so I think that's pretty much why I put this here. Theodore appears as the circus owner instead of as a mayor, and I'm not sure what to think of him. Theodore and Ellie should not be existing at the same time. He should be dead by now. He cannot be the same person as SNES Theodore. Is he like how Basil is different from Parsley Basil? Or is he a descendant of SNES Theodore? Or another theory? He's odd. This is odd. This one's an odd game. This Animal Parade is hard to place. But at least I have it over to the side here, not making the main timeline more complicated than it already is. Save the Homeland and Hero of Leaf Valley. I decided that these games are not different enough for me to think of these as like alternate universes of each other. Pretty different as far as remakes go, so you could split them if you want, but I don't think that's necessary. Parsley in this game is named Basil in Japanese. Both characters are like Bajiru in Japanese, but Parsley and Basil are not the same person, even if they share the same name. I know they look almost the same, they have the same job, the same Japanese name, but they do have slightly different designs and different birthdays. And Parsley has like blue teal eyes and Basil has brown eyes. Parsley has a more colorful feather in his hat, and Parsley's birthday is spring 16th, Basil's is summer 11th. They are different. I don't know why there are two of them, but there are. This is important in deciding where this goes, because you might think, oh, it happened slightly before 64, because he leaves Lila to marry Lilia. No. Different guys. It still could be placed there, since Basil and Parsley are different dudes. They could exist at the same time. These games could be placed anywhere during the main Flowerbud timeline. There's nothing in these games that makes it impossible to happen at a certain time, but also nothing that makes it clear where it does go. We just know that Flowerbud exists, and that this cast is completely separate from the cast in SNES, 64, and Tree of Tranquility. We have no like shared characters. I have 3 clues that lead me in different directions and don't actually confirm anything. Clue 1, Magical Melody. We could go off of Magical Melody and assume that they happen at the same time as SNES, so we could put it up at the beginning. Clue 2, title numbers. We could go off of how the games are numbered in Japanese. 64 was Bokumono 2 and was a direct sequel from SNES. Save the Homeland was Bokumono 3, so should I assume that this is also a sequel and should be put sometime after 64, which is, you can see I did put it there on this timeline, at least. I will show you version 2 in a moment. Clue 3, Toy is from Flowerbud. It's been a while and I can't remember who said it or when, but I thought I remembered it being said in Save the Homeland. I can find a screenshot of Katie asking what it was like in Flowerbud and Hero of Leaf Valley. Hopefully I'm not taking that out of context since I haven't played Hero of Leaf Valley, but I'm pretty sure that is a thing. I think I remember it being said at some point. Of course we don't see Toy in any of the other games. We don't see Toy in Flowerbud. The way he looks, we could think he's somewhere in the Pete family tree. Maybe not a direct like ancestor or descendant, because he inherits his farm from his grandpa in Sugar Valley, not in Flowerbud. Unless he has farmers on both sides of the family, so that his grandpa is not a direct ancestor or descendant of Pete, but Toy is. One grandpa is Pete, and one grandpa is this other guy, maybe. If Toy is a direct ancestor or descendant, then he has to be either older than SNES Pete or younger than 64 Pete. Because we know what the family tree looks like, or at least I do. I was working on family trees before deciding to make this video. We have SNES Pete's parents, Pete, who has 2 children, one of them being 64 Pete's dad, and then 64 Pete, who has 1 son. On version 1, I'm putting Save the Homeland after 64, going with both the numbered sequels reasoning and maybe a little headcanon about Toy being 64 Pete's descendant of some sort, or a descendant of the sibling of 64 Pete's dad. That's a thought. For version 2, I'm putting it at the same time as SNES, so that then I can put Magical Melody underneath it as a this is what happens if Toy fails thing, and then Animal Parade is connected to Magical Melody because of Theodore. He quit being mayor for some reason. Still doesn't explain why Ellie is on the TV in Animal Parade, but whatever. Maybe Theodore is immortal. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. One more thing. If you want to think of Lila as being someone's mother or daughter in the Nina and Potpourri family tree, that would also set this at either before SNES or after 64, since we know that it's Liz, Nina, Lilia, Potpourri uninterrupted. She could be Liz's mom or grandma, or Potpourri's granddaughter. Probably not daughter, since we know Potpourri names her daughter Mint if she marries Gray at least. Unless she has 2. Maybe you could put this anywhere in the timeline if we think that someone has a sister. There's no solid evidence she's part of the family though. Similar looks and likes flowers, so it makes sense that people think it. Since people think that either Nina or Lilia, couldn't actually be Lilia though, is the girl Parsley leaves for, it would be so messed up if Lila was related to the girl that he thought was better. It's already messed up that in Magical Melody, he is paired with Nina, who is super similar to Lila, even if not related. These games take place in Sugar Village, or Sugar Valley, or Leaf Valley, but Leaf Valley is really just like a thing they did in localization. I don't think it's actually called Leaf Valley. It's Sugar something. The Harvest Goddess in Hero of Leaf Valley is called Marina. I don't know if Marina and the Homeland Goddess are supposed to be the same person, just with a redesign, or if they're supposed to be 2 different goddesses. I really don't know. They look kind of similar, but also very different. So I don't know if they're both Marina and she just got a different look. I like the Save the Homeland one though. I like her better looking like that. And there are Harvest Sprites, Nick, Nack, and Flack. I think Nick and Nack's names are flipped from what they are in A Wonderful Life. Save the Homeland was before A Wonderful Life, so I guess the way I think they should be is wrong. And oh yeah, Hero of Leaf Valley, it also has like a Tanuki named Ponta, he's in one of the River King games. I don't know if he's in multiple River King games or if he's just in Mystic Valley, but I know he's in there. So we have a crossover character. So, oh man, I wonder if I should be putting like River King games somewhere on these timelines. Oops. I don't know. I don't think Rune Factory belongs anywhere on these timelines, by the way. I think that's its own thing. Alright, so now moving on to the Mineral Town universe. Like how I grouped Save the Homeland and Hero of Leaf Valley together, Friends of Mineral Town is a demake of Back to Nature. It is supposed to be more or less the same thing. There's enough differences that you could split them if you wanted to, but splitting them doesn't make a big difference on the timeline. I think Back to Nature would just like be over to the side by itself, because I think everything else would be linked to Friends of Mineral Town specifically. Like, you literally can link other games to Friends of Mineral Town with a cable or a DS. So that's what I think for that. Of course, they take place in Mineral Town. We have the classic goddess who looks exactly the same as the one in the Flowerbud universe, but she acts different. And we have the Harvest Sprites, we have the Kappa, who also acts different than he does in the Flowerbud universe. So same looks for the magical creators, but different personalities. In Flowerbud, there's a lot of different goddesses, but in Mineral Town, we mainly just have the classic goddess, and then Desi, who, like, we know exists, like, at the same time as the goddess. Like, she's being trained, basically, to be, like, the classic harvest goddess. Like, it's all pretty much more or less the same goddess throughout all of the Mineral Town universe. I think that's really interesting. Oh, except for Poop made things odd. We'll get to that. Alright, we haven't had a clear prequel game that shows obvious ancestors for these characters, so that's makes it even clearer that this is the beginning, I think. A Wonderful Life happens at the same time. It takes place in Forget-Me-Not Valley or Forgotten Valley, depending on the translation. I am assuming that the goddess is probably the same as the classic goddess. We just don't see her because she's being weird. She can appear in all of these other places, but not in Forget-Me-Not at this time, apparently. We needed a Desi, I guess, to take over there. That would be cute. We've got the Harvest Sprites. We also have a Yeti, Mukumuku, a Dachan, a living teddy bear, Tartan, a talking two-headed plant, Mr. Potts, who honestly kind of godlike powers. What's in that pot? Is it the pot itself or someone living in that? I don't know. But Mr. Potts can help you choose the gender of your child. It's like, there was also a dream that Nina has, I think, that the sprites were pleading with Mr. Potts for something. That was like, I think like shortly before she died or something. I don't remember when she had that dream. But Mr. Potts is godly. I also counted the fertilizer cricket as something supernatural because what the fuck is that? So it's the same time as Friends of Mineral Town because Van and Ruby can show up in Friends of Mineral Town, and the descendants from, you know, both Friends of Mineral Town and Wonderful Life show up in DS at the same time. That implies that they happened at the same time. So I've got DS over, like, to the side of that. That's why I put this big gap between Friends of Mineral Town and Wonderful Life, was so that I could put DS way far down, because I don't think any of the rest of the games happened after DS so far. I don't think enough time has passed. So roughly 100 years after Wonderful Life and Friends of Mineral Town, since these characters are descendants from the characters in those games. This game further confirms Forget-Me-Not and Mineral Town existing in the same universe, since the DS characters come down from the path out of the valley when you connect DS and Friends of Mineral Town. I don't know if Mukumuku is immortal, or if this is a descendant as well. Mukumuku, I'll also say later that Mukumuku, or a Yeti, I guess not necessarily Mukumuku, but a Yeti that looks identical also appears in A New Beginnings. It's like, okay, did you move? Or are you different Yeti? Or are you a descendant? And maybe they have short lives, maybe he's dead. We have the Harvest Sprites, the different Harvest Sprites. The Harvest King may or may not be Thomas. The Witch Princess, Mukumuku still, like I said, I don't know if that's him. Da-chan, I assume that's well, I mean, I assume it has to be the same Da-chan, but now I'm wondering where he came from, because we didn't see the Witch Princess in Wonderful Life, and I thought he was made by the Witch Princess. I don't think that's like canon, really, but Leia is added. So after that, I've put Islands of Happiness and Sunshine Islands in 2 different universes. So for both of these island games, I call them the island games, even though there's other games that also take place on islands. These are the island games. The Friends of Mineral Town versions of Karen, Potpourri, Cliff, and the Doctor show up. They do not have the DS names in Japanese. They call the Doctor Trent in English, but that is not Trent. So after Friends of Mineral Town and not after DS. Karen, Cliff, and Doctor are now married. That's why it's after, but not Potpourri for some reason. Potpourri and Karen are sister-in-laws, meaning Karen married Rick, which sets these firmly in the Mineral Town universe. Islands of Happiness takes place on Sunny Island. We got the classic goddess, we got the sprites, we got the Witch Princess in Sunshine Islands. This one takes place in like Sunshine. I don't actually know how to say this name. Archipelago. archipelago. We've got the classic goddess here as well, the harvest spice, the witch princess, but also witchkin. So Sunshine Island I put as an alternate universe to Islands of Happiness, in the exact same way that Animal Parade is for Tree of Tranquility. It's weird how they did this for both these island games and the Wii games. It's not as different as 64 and Back to Nature are for each other, since they have mostly the same personalities and the same families, but they are more different than Back to Nature and Friends of Mineral Town or Save the Homeland and Hero Flee Valley are to each other, since the settings and plots are so different. I really, really wish they would have had one of the Wii games in each universe and one of the island games in each universe. I think the timeline would look a lot nicer that way and make a little more sense, but unfortunately, they did not do that. If I could hop over into an alternate universe where they did do that, I would. I don't know for sure which one of these games is more canon. I think it's Sunshine Islands. But like when a character appears in a game after this, like it's hard to know if it's if Pierre in Tale of Two Towns is Islands of Happiness Pierre or Sunshine Islands Pierre, unless he references a specific thing that happens in one and not the other. I have no way to know. I think Sunshine Island replaces Islands of Happiness. I didn't do that with the Wii games. I didn't have Animal Parade replace Tree of Tranquility because I don't think the cameo characters make sense in the main timeline for Animal Parade. But here, yeah, I do think Sunshine Islands replaced that. And I think I have a note somewhere that further confirms that it should be in Sunshine Island. Also, since the DS games came out before the island games but take place after, the Witch Princess would have lived on one of these islands before Forget-Me-Not. Or maybe not, because I don't actually know how long ago the Witch Princess cursed Keira. I don't recall if a certain amount of time was actually stated for Keira's curse. So she might have popped into Forget-Me-Not at some point before DS. But we don't see her at all in Wonderful Life, and some people still think she's just in the shed and not coming out, but I don't think she's there. Grand Bazaar, I think, happens at approximately the same time as whichever island game is canon, Sunshine Islands. Ganon, Chen, and Wada come as visitors, and Pierre as well for the cooking contests. They don't move to Zephyr Town and stay, and there's nothing else to really insinuate that any big changes have happened in their lives that would mean that a lot of time has passed, so I'm putting it right next to Sunshine Island. Could be slightly after, but not by much at all. Grand Bazaar takes place in Zephyr Town. There is no goddess scene. I am wondering if, like, Emiko is... I haven't married her, but I am wondering if she's something magical, because, like, it's weird that you go behind a waterfall and there's, like, a shrine there and she's just there by herself. Is she a goddess? Is she, even though I said that we have the same goddess all in Mineral Town, maybe I'm wrong, maybe Emiko's a goddess, I don't know. But maybe she's just a really cool magical priestess girl, I don't know. Tale of Two Towns, I think, is slightly after Sunshine Islands and Grand Bazaar, because several characters from Sunshine Islands and Grand Bazaar move to these two towns and stay there. Dirk and Raul move to Konohana, and Raul's brothers, Enrique and Diego, move to Bluebell. Zephyr Town lost 4 people to these towns. Alyssa and Nathan moved to the church in Bluebell, and Pierre shows up for the cooking contest again, but he's just visiting again. Tale of Two Towns takes place in 2 towns, Bluebell and Konohana. We've got the classic goddess, and we have the Oracle kind of being like another type of witch princessy type of person a little bit. A New Beginning, I think, takes place at the same time as Tree of Tranquility. Amir moves to Echo Village. Zephyr Town is barren. He now has his attendant Sanjay with him. The Witch Princess moves here from Mystic Island and Sunshine Island. She no longer has her niece with her. The Yeti might not actually be Muku Muku and just another of his species. I call him Muku Muku though. You can't talk to him. And he lives, you know, obviously the place that you go to, what's it called? I don't know, you travel to another place that isn't like in Echo Village, but it's clearly not Forget-Me-Not either. It's like a place that's specifically cold. Yeah, it takes place in Echo Village. We've got the classic Harvest Goddess, we got Harvest Sprites, the Witch Princess, and yeah, the Yeti, like I said. Various characters from previous games send you letters in A New Beginning. I don't think any mess up the timeline, because not a huge amount of time passes from the beginning of this universe, at least not until DS. So in A New Beginning, probably all of these characters should be alive, and I don't recall getting any that should be from the Flowerbud universe. I don't think. I can't seem to find a collection of those letters in my game. It saves letters of like my achievements, but I don't see those. So I looked up to see if someone has a list of the letters, and I can't find something like that. But I can find other people talking about them, especially on Fogu. So far, I've seen you get letters from A Wonderful Life, Sunshine Islands, Grand Bazaar, and Tale of Two Towns. Someone said Islands of Happiness, but I think they were mistaking it for Sunshine Islands, since they said that Sprite Island had been raised. That's a Sunshine Islands thing. So this makes me confident that Sunshine Island did replace Islands of Happiness. Because things that happened during older games are being mentioned in the letters, this makes me feel like putting the games like diagonally instead of vertically and horizontally would make sense, even if it wouldn't look very good. Like, each game starts a little before the last, but are still going. Since these games can be played for years, that makes sense to me. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about? I think this looks nice, though, the way I have it. So Story of Seasons happens after Tale of Two Towns and A New Beginning. It takes place in Oak Tree Town. We've got the classic goddess showing up on the TV, but we have Desi as like our harvest goddess that's actually like there. The harvest sprites, witch princess also on the TV. Witchy, taking place of the witch princess, just like Desi is for the goddess. Cam, now translated to Camille, and Reina, now translated to Licorice, moved from Bluebell and Konohana to Oak Tree Town. And Witchy moves here as well. This is very simple. Trio Towns, I did initially have this at the same time as Story of Seasons until I realized, oh wait, Witchy moves again. So yeah, Witchy moves. Stephanie and Wufio settle down in West Town and Lulucoco if you have the DLC. It takes place in 3 different towns. West Town, Lulucoco, Tsukusa. Aside from Witchy and Desi, we also have Inari, who's like another god character. So yeah, I put this right after Story Seasons. Pioneers of Olive Town makes things weird, makes things a little odd. The only way you get returning characters at all in this one is with a paid DLC. So you could consider it as not canon, since you can play the game without any signs of this being connected to anything else. But since the DLC adds characters from A New Beginning, Story Seasons, and Trio of Towns, who have all moved to different islands that you can travel to, I put it right after Trio of Towns. Definitely not a lot of time could have passed between all of the 3DS games and Pioneers for all of them to be showing up together unchanged. I already thought not a lot of time was passing, so that does check out. You could maybe consider this as being another universe, since the sprites are so different and we have a spirit instead of a harvest goddess. She fills the exact same type of role as the harvest goddess, so I'm not sure why she's not considered a goddess. But yeah, so it takes place in Olive Town. We've got the spirit, and we have earth sprites, which look different from our usual sprites, and there's also baddies. I don't know if those are supposed to be like some sort of magical thing or not, but those exist. They're moles. They're moles. So zooming out here so we can see all of it together. In the unplaceable section, we've got Magical Melody in My Little Shop. So Magical Melody takes place in Flowerbud Village. The Harvest Goddess is Marielle, and we have the Harvest Sprites, and I think Jamie counts as a magical character. In version 2, I did put this in the Flowerbud universe under Save the Homeland, so it would happen right after that, and SNES if Toy were to fail, and before Animal Parade. In version 1, I just can't see this fitting anywhere. It has SNES characters, minus a few, and with a few ones modeled after 64 characters. Their families more or less make sense with the 64 families. I definitely use some of them as like placeholders in my timeline. It has Save the Homeland characters, and this was before Hero of Leaf Valley, so it specifically Save the Homeland. We know Save the Homeland is in the Flowerbud universe, so everything is fitting nicely into the Flowerbud universe, which is why in version 2 I did put it over there. However, there is a character that resembles the Doctor from Mineral Town who didn't exist in 64 or in SNES. He came in Back to Nature, So I don't know what that's doing there. Nami from Wonderful Life shows up as the weather girl, not just in the TV, in person, and she has otherwise only existed in the Flowerbud, in the Mineral Town universe. I said earlier I was going to get to this. In A Wonderful Life, there is a box marked for Flowerbud in one of the buildings at Vestas Farm. And I think there's another one marked for Mineral Town. So like there's boxes marked for these two places that shouldn't really be existing together. So I don't know if that's just an Easter egg that Flowerbud is marked on the boxes, but maybe it means that, wow, I can talk so good. Maybe it means that a version of Flowerbud does exist within the Mineral Town universe, like a town named that. Maybe Magical Melody happens around the same time as A Wonderful Life. Maybe it's going to there specifically. Though I think Nami specifically does not have a job in A Wonderful Life, so that wouldn't really match up with her being the weather girl in Magical Melody, unless she's just telling everyone she doesn't have a job when she does. Also, it can't be DS Nami. Her Japanese name isn't Nasuka. It would be crazy if the alternate universe versions of the SNES characters existed in the same time and universe as the alternate universe versions of their original versions' grandchildren. I think I hate what I just said. Actually, that's too chaotic. This could still be in the Flowerbud universe, like how I put it in the other one, with just Flowerbud versions of the Doctor-ish character and Nami, and I'm completely overthinking. It could still have been an alternate universe from SNES, because it uses a different goddess from SNES, and you know, with other characters moving there, it obviously didn't happen the exact same as SNES, so. And like how I talked about Theodore being an Animal Parade earlier, this could put this just before Animal Parade, which would have this happening at around the same time as 64, which again would mean that alternate versions of the grandparents of the 64 characters would exist at the same time as the 64 characters. Though it's a little less chaotic than how it would be for Mineral Town when I was talking about Nami. But yeah, this game is weird. Magical Melody is strange. It exists in its own little space. For my little shop, I've never played this game. It takes place in Clover Town. The classic Harvest Goddess to show up and the Witch Princess. It mixes characters from several games from both universes. Time means nothing also. Even more of a chaotic mix than Magical Melody. Absolutely cannot be placed on either timeline. The only thing this game does is maybe surprisingly confirm Muffy as the canon Wonderful Life Bachelorette, because her son appears, but he has the wrong eye color, blue instead of green. His name is Andy, Toto in Japanese. I used Fogu to see a list of characters since I never got to play this one, and I wonder how they determined which game some of these were from, because between 64 and Back to Nature, why is Ellie from 64 but Ellen is from Back to Nature? It seems like they put bachelorettes and bachelors as being from 64 and anyone else is from Back to Nature, except of course they put Trent from Back to Nature, which is wrong in so many ways. The Doctor in Back to Nature is not named Trent. If we're using the name Trent, he should be listed as from DS, or I guess the Island game, since the translation calls him that, but that's actually Doctor, not Trent. But this is Alex from Magical Melody. This isn't Trent or Doctor. The name is so wrong, which is Natsume's fault. I don't know if him being listed as from Back to Nature is because of Natsume or Fogu, because I don't know if the game specified which games the characters were from or not. But this is crazy to look at. I would like to keep adding onto this with each new game. I think you'll get updates. I will maybe redo the whole explanation from the top one day after lots of games have been added. With how things have been for the past very many years, I predict that I'll probably be able to just keep adding things to the main Mineral Town timeline in order of release. But with Pioneers being kind of odd, maybe I'm wrong. Tell me what you think about any of this in the comments. I'm interested in hearing it, reading it, actually. I hope that my explanation hasn't been too confusing. I'll try to edit this in a way that makes sense, but I kept like starting sentences and stopping, so editing me is about to have a time. The reason I finally put this together is because I was working on family tree videos, I mentioned that earlier, and realized that some of that might not make sense without you being able to see this timeline I've had in my head. It helps me a lot to actually see it too. I think I'm about to make more sense in the future, I think. Maybe. Alright, don't forget to hit like, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye!